Restoring power in Puerto Rico has been slow, and on Friday, Abner Gómez stepped down as the head of the island's emergency management agency. Dennis M. Rivera Pichardo for the New York Times San Juan, the head of Puerto Rico's emergency management agency, resigned Friday, the same day that the Army general in charge of the military's response to the hurricane announced that his mission on the island had ended. The moves came as Puerto Rico tries to shift away from the emergency phase of its hurricane response, and just a day after a widespread power failure underscored the enormous challenges that remain. More than 2,000 people are still in shelters, and the power grid is operating at 41% capacity, 52 days after the storm. Lt. Gen. Jeffrey Buchanan arrived in Puerto Rico about a week after Hurricane Maria pummeled the island, in the midst of fierce criticism of the federal response. He quickly acknowledged that not enough federal troops were on the island and vowed to do more to help Puerto Rico. On Friday, he said the federal government had distributed 51 million gallons of water and 20 million meals and had tended to 5,000 sick residents. He said that the military's missions, primarily clearing roads, attending to medical emergencies and helping restore communications, were complete. Other agencies, like the National Guard and Federal Emergency Management Agency, would continue the work. Some military officials would remain on the island to wind down operations. FEMA is going to be here, very much for the long term and the rebuilding, General Buchanan said. We in the military generally don't do that. Shortly afterward, the government announced that Abner Gómez, the commissioner of the Puerto Rico Emergency Management Agency, had resigned. It was unclear whether Mr. Gómez's resignation was an indication that the government had recognized a failure in its response to Hurricane Maria, or that he had simply lost influence at the agency. Mr. Gómez's profile had diminished this year when the governor created a cabinet position over him. He had not been a visible figure since the storm and rarely appeared at news conferences. In his resignation letter, Mr. Gómez acknowledged that the recovery had largely been assigned to someone else, so he was stepping down to let his new supervisor, the Secretary of Public Safety, name his own team. Mr. Gómez did not respond to requests for comment. On Thursday, Gov. Ricardo A. Rossello asked his cabinet to sign undated letters of resignation. Mr. Rossello has vowed to eliminate 100 agencies and many members of the cabinet are going to find themselves without jobs, he said. We had an emergency phase where practically all of us were sustaining lives, he said. We are now entering a recovery phase, and for that, he said, he needs a more nimble government. Oscar Ramiro, the head chef of a popular bakery in San Juan, said that Mr. Gómez was not the only official who had shown himself unable to address the destruction of Hurricane Maria. Others should also resign or be replaced, starting at the top, said Mr. Ramiro, who still has no power at his house in Rio Piedras, a San Juan neighborhood. He's been pretty incompetent, he said of Mr. Gómez. The governor entrusted him with this responsibility, which means that ultimately, the problem is the governor. Caitlin Dickerson contributed reporting from San Juan.